northeast of Tobago is ideal.
This environment is absolutely beautiful.
What you have here is a gold mine of potential that is to be explored.
Bird watching is one of Tobago's major thing in this forest as well.
We have a lot of travelers. They want clean, green, environmentally friendly type destinations.
The focus of Man in the Biosphere goal
is going to help many of those local communities to continue sustainable livelihoods.
And that is why you have to capitalize on every inch of it.
The bewitching beauty of North East Tobago transfixes you. Quiet fishing villages hug bays and inlets along the coast, caressed by the deep greens of lush hillsides. At her beachfront restaurant in Castara, Deborah Jane Weeks-Taylor prepares a traditional Tobago meal. The sounds coming in from across the bay, her constant companion, the rhythm of her life.
When I first started working here, first started actually living in Tobago, I couldn't relate to that. The waves. After a couple of months, within a year or two, then you start to really, you can sit and really pipe down and really understand what you're hearing. It's like music. The birds, the waves, it's totally beautiful.
It is this bond between communities, their culture, and the natural environment that won Northeast Tobago a special designation from the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, known as UNESCO. Northeast Tobago is now a UNESCO Man and the Biosphere Reserve, an internationally recognized title given to areas where people strive to coexist in harmony and sustainably with nature.
With the designation of the North East Tobago Biosphere Reserve by UNESCO, we recognize its biological diversity and cultural heritage. It's a place where people can easily demonstrate, teach, study, and learn what sustainable development means. Tobago is highly dependent on tourism. That's where we generate most of our contribution to Trinidad and Tobago's national income. The designation is going to help us essentially to redouble our efforts to conserve those natural assets that we depend on for our socio-economic development. But there's also a unique responsibility for us to monetize those assets and monetize them in a way that allows us to improve our socio-economic well-being.
The UNESCO certificate hangs proudly in the office of the Environmental Research Institute, Charlotteville. Its founding director worked closely with the Tobago House of Assembly and the government of Trinidad and Tobago to get this global honor for the island.
What you have here is a gold mine of potential that is to be explored. Man in the Biosphere is a tool. It's not an award. It is something you have to pick up and use and take. And I really believe that every single citizen and resident in Northeast Tobago has potential to personally benefit from it.
In a biosphere reserve, there is a deep commitment to using natural resources in a sustainable way. People use land and sea in a way that meets their needs now and preserves these resources for future generations. The North East Tobago Man and the Biosphere Reserve stretches 835 square kilometers. Within its boundaries are 15 communities, home to just over 10,000 people. The Biosphere Reserve is made up of 3 areas: a transition area dominated by communities and roads, the buffer zone, an area with opportunities for sustainable economic activities such as agroforestry, ecotourism, and sustainable fishing, and the core area, protected by law and perfect for research, educational experiences, and day trips. It is this core area that forms the lungs of Tobago, the Main Ridge Forest Reserve. Tobago boasts of having the world's oldest protected rainforest, an ordinance passed more than 2 centuries ago. This forest is the source of most of Tobago's rivers. It's the size of 4,000 football fields, a bountiful biodiversity sanctuary, making it one of the country's premier ecotourism attractions.
The resources here are being promoted as things that go unnoticed, things that go unseen. Ocellated gecko, which we as locals we think is quite common. To many others, this is an interesting species.
Few know the treasures of this forest the way this man does.
Looking for chogan, eh?
Newton George turned years of experience as a forester into a respected tour guide business.
Right, so this stop is to look at the roof, these birds up there with that nesting. Yeah, look at them up here. Crested or pendolas. Bird watching is one of Tobago's major thing in this forest as well. As a matter of fact, Tobago is a small island. It's only 116 square miles. The reserve itself, it's about 10,000 acres thereabout. And given the size of Tobago, 116 square miles, Tobago is ranked about 5th per capita with birds in the world. So it's a really good place for Tobago to be in, to be ranking so high on birds, and it has become a major bird watching destination as well.
Walking trails are full of prospects to spot the thousands of winged residents of the forest. Catch a rufous-tailed jacama as it scans the surroundings for an insect meal. Or spot the Trinidad motmot that's actually more common in Tobago. One of the most exciting pieces of action in the middle of the forest is the courtship of the blue-backed manakins. The manakins find a number of thin, low, bent branches throughout the forest and establish meeting places called leks. It's at these leks that 2 male suitors vie for the affection of a lone female, putting on a competitive display of theater right in the middle of the forest. And if you're lucky enough to catch it happening, you get a wonderful dance display taking place before your eyes. We're going to find one now. Catching these birds in the act is a stroke of luck or a game of patience. Eventually, we spot a gentleman calling out to fellow bachelors.
when they stop call like that, it tells you they move from point A to point B, and it's possible that they are going to display when they make a call like that and they stop.
Down below, the perfect place for a pole dance, one of the many leks in the forest. By this point, the other bachelor is proving stubborn, so he decides to end the standoff. He eventually locates his dance partner and their synchronized act begins. When they sense a female is approaching, they leave the treetop canopy and descend to the dance floor. Finally, she appears, far more dull in color than the males, vying intently for her attention. In the end, she's hardly impressed. She leaves the boys to squabble among themselves. Roads through the main ridge connect to nearby coastline communities nestled on the outskirts of the forest. It is here that we find another layer of the Biosphere Reserve.
The expression reef to ridge is often used to describe the full scope of the biosphere. And that expression is so important because it goes to show that it's not just mainland Tobago that's included within this protected designation. There's also the marine aspect, all of the sea species that are involved within this area. But that marine area extends out just off the coast to 3 islands, St. Giles, Goat Island, and the largest of the 3, Little Tobago, where you can find 3 special interest species of the booby bird as well as the red-billed tropic bird, very important species within the biosphere designated area.
Little Tobago, like the other small islands off Tobago's coast, is uninhabited, a dry, sloping landscape without fresh water. Yet nearly 30 species of birds nest in this rare tropical dry forest, making it a precious haven for Tobago's biodiversity. The final hours of daylight are a chance to see the red-billed tropic bird. Home from a day of fishing at sea, dozens circle the cliffs. The distinct red bill is a feature of the mature birds. Fuzzy fledglings must wait a few months before getting that signature color or even being able to fly. It isn't just the skies over the open seas that are teeming with precious species. Tobago's rich sea life is internationally renowned, another key feature that earned it UNESCO's Biosphere designation. Curtis Antwine has spent much of his life on these waters and fed his family from them.
Well, I get started at a very young age. Because of my father has been a fisherman for maybe started as young as me. And I mean, I just follow on and make a living out of it. Just a part of us. We can't really get away from that. And I mean, eventually to be with some of the creatures that are out here, it is so tremendous. It have a lot out here to be excited about, a lot you can learn, and a lot that could profit you plenty.
Antoine knows he must balance his need to make a living with the survival of the fish population.
If I catch a fish of a small size, I will put it back. Fish that I don't want, I try not to kill them. So I always try to maintain the ocean.
Not every fisherman understands why it's important to use the seas in a sustainable way, and that is a threat to Tobago's marine life.
The sea coast here, we have reefs from Castara all the way up to Charlotteville on the coastline. And recently, since the pandemic, we would have seen spearfishers on a daily basis spearfishing on our reefs, catching the parrotfishes, the angel fishes. These are fishes that belongs to the reef, helps the reef to stay alive. Parrotfishes are the workers of the reef, you know. Without parrotfishes, reefs die. This UNESCO thing is the best tool to change that, because you will now then have to restructure how you treat with the environment.
The continued conservation of those natural resources and so on is clearly in the interest of all people of Tobago, but particularly the people of North East Tobago, because that's where they live, that's where they derive most of their socioeconomic well-being and so on. So it's a significant responsibility that is being placed on them. We all have a responsibility to volunteer, to get involved in volunteer efforts aimed at conservation of those natural assets in North East Tobago.
The Man in the Biosphere designation will bring a deeper commitment to environmental conservation, and that could mean additional regulations on certain activities. But there will also be new opportunities.
While restrictions will limit certain income possibilities, the increase in other income opportunities is by far outweighs the loss. Now people can say, hey, I can brand my smoked fish as a smoked fish from a Man in the Biosphere Reserve. If I want to market my accommodation, well, I can market it as a Man in the Biosphere, and that makes a big difference.
One of the exciting opportunities in ecotourism is the Blue Flag program, and Kings Bay is aspiring to win this award. Like the Man and the Biosphere designation, Blue Flag is one of the world's most recognized awards for safe, clean beaches, marinas, and boats.
We have a lot of travelers. They come for eco-type activity. And when we ask them as well in those reports, what would they like to see? In fact, they started speaking about clean beaches. They started speaking about recycling. What Blue Flag actually does is it takes it one step further, and it also adds a layer of validity to that Man and Biosphere zone. There are so many jobs that can spill off of it, sustainable type jobs, and of course, high value type jobs.
Green and serene are two of North East Tobago's trademark qualities, but strong ties to cultural heritage are another signature part of Tobago life. The sounds of centuries-old traditions thunder through classrooms across the island.
I believe that we should know where we came from, what our ancestors had to go through, the meaning of the dances. So while you do the dances or you know your history, you'll be able to appreciate yourself better. So I believe that knowing your history, it builds you inside and out.
That belief is a key pillar of the UNESCO Man and the Biosphere program, which is why conservation of culture should be a key part of any biosphere reserve.
Culturally,
we can pull some of these things, stories, you know, practices, into being able to pass on the values of caring for the environment. They had such deep respect, as we call it, Mother Earth, you know, for the earth. They had such deep respect about how we treat with each other.
Culture on the island is in many ways living history, but there is also history that can be revived, an opportunity for cultural conservation that the UNESCO Man and the Biosphere program provides.
Right around Tobago, on the northeast, there's a lot of little historical sites that could be developed. Because of UNESCO, you can now acquire funding as an organization. You come up with a plan, a proposal, and you can acquire funding, whether it's to set up a cocoa factory or a sugarcane factory or whatever. And by doing so, you create employment, and you have just created a site, or you have just developed another tourism product.
That is the value of the UNESCO Man and the Biosphere designation. The impetus to restore history, preserve culture, protect the environment. But the Man and the Biosphere program is also a catalyst for new beginnings, the creation of jobs for sustainable use of the environment, the start of new ecotourism products and services, widespread education for Tobago's population about the value of their natural resources and their culture, more scientific research into the beauty of the island's biodiversity, its history and its people, and membership in a global network of biosphere reserves willing to share their experiences and their solutions with Tobago.
And we can contribute to that larger, the biosphere in that process by ensuring that we play our part and we educate the children in order to play their part so that we can see a clean, green, safe and serene environment.
You get to love your environment, and because you love your environment, you want to learn more. When you have a UNESCO site, you are recognized worldwide. And that is why you have to capitalize on every inch of it